Welcome again to HUD's training on how to prepare and review rent comparability studies. As we mentioned in the first session, new instructions were published in November 2016, and these training sessions are designed to provide appraisers, owners, and reviewers with an overview of the process. This is the second of 4 trainings, and in this session we'll cover sections 9.10 through 9.13 of the Section 8 Renewal Policy Guide on preparing rent comparability studies. One more note. If anything said today in these slides contradicts what's in the guide, the language in the guide controls. Once again, here are a few terms you'll see throughout this training. MARA stands for the Multifamily Assisted Housing Reform and Affordability Act. Guide refers to the Section 8 Renewal Policy Guide. RCS is the Rent Comparability Study. FMR, or Fair Market Rents. AE refers to the HUD staff person who is the account executive. USPAP is the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices. And CA stands for Contract Administrators. Before we move on to Session 2, let's take just a minute to review the takeaways from Session 1. 1. There are very few policy changes in the new Chapter 9. 2. There are alternatives to the RCS if the contract is renewing under Option 2. And finally, we study how to consider non-shelter services in the subject and the comps. We're going to cover a lot of material in this session today, including selecting comparables, insufficient comparables, the search procedure, collecting data, non-shelter service adjustments, the why and how of adjustments, common errors or special issues, deriving market rents, and special project types. As I mentioned in the previous session, the material in this part of the chapter is not new, nor should appraisers find it different from most other types of instructions for completing other types of appraisals. This session is simply a reminder of the requirements that are in the guide. As I said, we're going to be covering a lot of material in the next hour, but I'd like you to take away 3 things from this session. 1, what you're to do if you can't find sufficient comparables. 2, how to value those pesky non-shelter services provided at the subject or the comparable. And last, take note of common errors, items that we hope appraisers will pay particular attention to when preparing RCSs in the future. So let's get started with the 6-point criteria. You, the appraiser, must make a good faith effort to find comparable units that meet all of the 6 criteria below. The first criteria says the comparable should be in the same market area. Defined market area is a subjective term, but should be based on your professional judgment. Second, the comparables should not be receiving tenant rental assistance, meaning project-based Section 8, certificates, vouchers, PRAC or PAC, be in a 202-811 project, have rent supplement or rental assistance, RAP, or any comparable federal, state, or other public services. Third, the comps should have locations and neighborhood conditions similar to the subject. Fourth, the structure and layout, design, street appeal, age, size, and unit mix and utilities of the potential comp should be similar to those of the subject. Fifth, the potential comp should offer similar services and amenities. And last, The potential comp should not be rent restricted or rent controlled. Now let me end this slide by saying that we strongly encourage appraisers to find 5 comps that meet all of these 6 criteria. We use the short term for strive for 5. However, there may be circumstances where finding 5 similar projects just is not possible. The guide therefore provides guidance on what to do when insufficient comparables can't be found. We're going to discuss that in the following slides. Let's look at some of the criteria that Chapter 9 provides to appraisers who cannot find 5 comps that meet all of those 6 criteria. First, we discourage using projects with rent restrictions, but there might be a situation where a project contains unassisted units that are truly considered market rate. Second, properties with an identity of interest. You may select a comparable that has the same ownership management, but you must disclose identity of interest and verify the information from that project. Next, you may select comps from outside the subject's market area if the market area is similar. When looking at other market areas, you should select a similar market area considering rent levels, housing prices, demographics, job opportunities, and other relevant economic indicators. You, the appraiser, may also consider projects that are dissimilar in terms of vintage, construction type, layout, design, and/or services and amenities. For either of these 2, you can do so as long as you provide market support for the comparable selection process. If for some reason you cannot find 5 comparables for each unit type, the guide also allows you to use fewer than 5 comps. However, no unit type can have less than 3 comps. Before you provide less than 5, you should ask the regional center about potentials. If you provide less than 5, you must address the issue of why fewer than 5 comparables were used. Using rent-restricted units is a last resort. You should not even think about using this type of project unless rent-restricted units are the norm and market rate units are uncommon. You must clearly disclose in the RCS that you have used rent-restricted units and the nature of the rent restriction. Before selecting these types of projects as comps, please make sure to discuss the issue with the owner and HUD appraisal staff. If an appraiser continues to have difficulty finding comps, there is yet another category of properties that they can consider, properties that we are going to call special project types. These are described in detail in Appendix 9-6. These projects are not typically suitable as comps, but let's take a deeper look. Cooperatives. Let's start with cooperatives, or a co-op. The residents own shares in this project. For purposes of the RCS, co-op ownership doesn't significantly affect market rent. Depending on your evaluation of the market, being a cooperative may or may not affect market rent. Next, elderly special needs housing. Let's look at elderly and special needs projects. These types of projects are different from typical comps because they include services offered at no extra cost. If the subject has services, then the preference is for you to identify a comp with similar services, even if it's outside the market area, rather than select a project in the market area without such services. If the subject has no services, you should use traditional market rate projects. The next slide, we'll look at another type of special project, student housing. Student housing typically has two types of student housing. The traditional apartment, restricted to students where a person is a tenant who rents a studio or larger unit containing a kitchen, bath, and sleeping quarters. The second is what's known as by-the-bed project, where the student rents just a bed, not an apartment. Appraisers can never use the second type under any circumstances as a comp. Another special project type is congregate care projects. These types of projects provide extended services and sometimes use a by-the-bed daily rental structure. Some of the different types of congregate care projects include assisted living facilities, senior citizen housing, or age-restricted retirement communities. If the project offers by-the-bed and a daily rate, then again, it cannot be used under any circumstances as a comp. We've included after rehabilitation under special project types because we're finding more projects intending to undertake renovation as part of the contract renewal process. If such work is planned, the appraiser must undertake a dual review of the subject project in the as-is and post-rehab state and assume renovations are complete. The appraiser should review proposed repairs and find not only comps that reflect the current condition of the project, but also those that reflect the post-renovation condition. The appraiser should also see if any adjustment needs to be reflected on the 92273S8, that's the form, the rent grid, in the sections on year built, year renovated, condition, or street appeal. Please remember that not all repairs will have an impact on rents. Now it's time for a little checkup. When insufficient comps exist, appraisers can select a comp from outside the market area, select a by-the-bed student housing comp if physically adjacent to the subject, ask HUD for information on comps, select a project with tenant-based rental assistance, select a project owned by the subject's owner. I'll give you just a minute to consider your answers. Maybe that wasn't a minute, but here's the question. The question was, when sufficient comps don't exist, can appraisers select a comp from outside the market area? That's contained in section 910B for more details. The answer is yes. Select a by-the-bed student housing comp. No, an appraiser cannot select by-the-bed student housing comp. Ask HUD for information. Yes, we encourage you to ask HUD for information. Select a project with tenant-based rental assistance. No, an appraiser cannot select a project with tenant-based rental assistance. Last, select a project owned by the subject's owner. The answer to that is sometimes an appraiser can select such a project. You need to look at the guide in 9-10 for conditions which must be met before such a project can be selected. I now want to move into the process of procedure for searching for comps as detailed in section 9-10. First, please remember that the important thing is to document the search process. You need to note the means used for the comparable selections. Did you drive the market area? Did you interview account executives, owners, consult a subscription database, or a combination of all of those? You need to describe those specific characteristics that the respective comparable shares with the subject. Are they in the same market area? Do they have similar design and layout? And justify the inclusion of the project in the RCS. You're also going to have to document the reasons for exclusion of other projects considered. If unassisted properties are close but not used, you really have to explain why. For each decision that varies from the norm, you have to say why. If you provided less than 5 comps, then you have to say why if the comp is significantly different from the subject. You must describe the research that more similar units are not available. If the comps were outside the market area, you have to discuss research you undertook that better comps were not in the market area. If you include rent-restricted units in the RCS, then you really have to discuss the research that no non-rent-restricted units were available and have to explain the type of restriction in the guide. Here's an example of the additional justification you're going to need to provide that's contained in 9-10C of the guide. The nearest one-bedroom units to the subject are a mile away on Ocean View Boulevard. However, those units are mostly large, luxury units with many amenities and ocean views. Rather than make numerous large adjustments, I, the appraiser, selected more similar comps but located further away that were still within the geographic radius shopped by renters. It's time for another checkup. When selecting comps, which 2 are not in the 6-point criteria? Not rent restricted or rent controlled. Tenants can receive tenant rental assistance, but not project-based rental assistance. They can be in the same market. They can have similar neighborhood conditions. They can have dissimilar services. I'll give you a few seconds to consider your responses. Now let's take a look at the answers. When selecting comps, which 2 are not in the 6-point criteria? Not rent restricted? Yes. Tenants can receive rental assistance, but not project-based assistance? No. No kind of tenant assistance is allowed. If it's in a mixed project, you may want to consider if the unassisted units really represent the market. Can it be in the same market? Certainly. Can it have similar neighborhood conditions? Certainly. Can it have dissimilar services? No. In the next few slides, we're going to discuss collecting and reporting the data on the comps once you've selected the 5 that you wish to use. Collecting the data. For each unit type, you, the appraiser, must collect data on the elements on the rent grid. That's that 92272. And any other characteristics that would affect rent. You also have to identify any services offered at the comp. If it's outside the subject's market area, you also must provide the market data that we will discuss shortly. You must independently verify any information. However, you are not restricted as many sources of information necessary to support yourself. You may use multiple sources, as many as you wish, to justify your conclusions. You're to view the comp's grounds and the exterior, and if access is given, and you have to get permission, view the interior common areas. You are to take color photographs of the comp's exterior, and if the comp is in a different market area, then you have to collect market-based data in each market. You are to obtain rentable interior square footage. Now, you're not required to inspect a comp's units unless, again, access is provided. But if you don't inspect the unit, then you must try to obtain the data elsewhere. If you only have access to the exterior measurements, then you need to use your judgment about converting that exterior measurement into rental square footage. You should also use your judgment as to whether this project really should be used as a comp. You need to talk to management about occupancy rates also. Find out if any unit type is particularly difficult to rent. If the occupancy rate is not typical, then why is it not typical? Is the rent too high, or are there other reasons for high vacancies in that particular project? Non-shelter services, let's talk about those. You must determine if the project provides non-shelter services. If it does, you must identify if it's included in the rent or paid by the tenant. If payment for the service is included in the rent, then you can value both the availability and the service itself. If it's paid by the tenant separately, only the value of the availability should be counted. If the project is designed for the elderly or for the disabled, then you need to determine if it provides services like emergency call systems, transportation, meals, etc. Once all of the data has been collected, then it's time to report it in line in the guide. Reporting the data. For each comp you select, you must report the data, all of the data, that's in line K of Appendix 913. And for ease of reporting, this next appendix, 914, provides a suggested format. Both of those appendixes are at the end of Chapter 9, so it should be easy to find. Please remember that for each primary unit type, you must report data on data columns of the rent grid. Again, 92273. For reporting the data, you have to complete all lines of the grid, even if there is no adjustment. You must also place all the comps for each subject unit type on one grid. You must identify any data that you were not able to obtain or that you estimated, and what efforts you undertook to find that data. You can find the detailed instructions for reporting the comp data in 9-12 and 9-13. Once you've completed the reporting of the data, then you have to begin the process of determining the adjusted rent for each comp. It's time for another checkup. This time we're going to make it easier on you, and we're going to do a true-false. Here we go. True or false? In reporting comparable data, an appraiser only has to enter data in the grid if there is an adjustment made to the comp's rents. Answer: in reporting comparable data, an appraiser only has to enter data in the rent grid if there's an adjustment made to the comp's rents. The answer is false. All data are to be reported on the 92273 Section 8 rent grid, even if there's no adjustment. Now, after reporting the data collected, now let's take a look at how you should compute the adjusted rent. In order to compute the adjusted rent, you have to first compute an effective rent. Second, determine which differences would affect the amount of rent a tenant is willing to pay. And last, adjust the comparables rents by the amount you determine tenants would typically pay. We're now moving on to adjusting inferior and superior comps and to give calculations, examples, and some explanations for each. If the comparable is inferior to the subject, then you have to adjust the rent in the comp upward. You would enter a positive dollar amount in the rent grid. Here's an example of how to do that on the next slide. If the comparable units are 100 square feet smaller than the subject, you estimate the incremental square footage to be 50 cents a square foot. So you would enter a positive $50 on line 13 of the form. If the comparable is superior to the subject, then you have to adjust the rent in the comp downward. You would enter a negative dollar amount in the rent grid. Again, the next slide gives an example. The comparable units have patios and balconies, and the subject does not. Your research shows that a third project in this market offers units with and without balconies and charges about $15 more when the unit has balconies. In this case, you'd enter a negative $15 in the rent grid for that particular amenity. Once you've done the math, then again, you have to explain what you've done. We call this the why and how of making adjustments. Why was each adjustment made, and how was the dollar value of each adjustment derived? When completing this justification, you must be clear and convincing, and each line item adjustment requires both kinds of explanations. Let's jump into the whys. You have to provide reasons that justify each adjustment. You must also explain if the adjustment is on the total dollar amount basis, which is usually not the case, or a dollar amount per unit, which is much more common. In addition to providing reasons for why the adjustment was made, you have to explain the rationale for each amount of each adjustment. You could use paired comparable analysis, interviews with management agents or the leasing agent. However, if you use interviews, you need to make sure that the information can be documented rather than just an unfounded opinion. Prior experience in the subject market to justify the amount of adjustment could be used. In discussing the how, you cannot just reiterate what is in the grid, i.e., I adjusted the rents downward in Comp A because of location. Instead, you must provide the logic you used to arrive at that adjustment. For adjustments exceeding a nominal amount, you have to present market data to support those conclusions. The department has defined nominal amounts in Appendix 9.1.2. Now, let's look at an example of the how and why in a rent comparability study. The subject and comparables C, D, and E offer either a balcony or a patio, while comparables A and B do not offer that feature in any of their units. We recently appraised a project in this market that offered units with and without balconies. Units with balconies commanded an additional rent of about $20, which provides the basis for the upward adjustment to comparables A and B. We've also provided some additional guidance for line item adjustments in Appendix 9.1.2A5. There's a table in front of those instructions where we identify a few line items where errors have been made in the past. We call those special issues. As you're making adjustments on the grid, please pay particular attention to those issues identified on the next slide. Rent-restricted units. Sometimes appraisers have made a dollar adjustment for rent-restricted units. Occupancy percent. A few appraisers have made an adjustment for occupancy differential due to factors other than the project's rent level. This is just not allowed. Condition, street appeal, neighborhood. Some appraisers have made large dollar adjustments for lines 8 and 9 on the grid, which sometimes makes the reviewer question if the comparable is similar enough to the subject. Comparables from outside the subject's market area. Some appraisers have made an adjustment for comparables in a different market area when the market evidence indicates that the differential in rent is not significant. Unit interior square footage. Some appraisers have made unit size adjustments for size differences of less than 10 square feet. Or in some cases, there were adjustments for unit size differences without narrative support. Non-shelter services. The total net adjustments for these line items sometimes have exceeded $50 or 5% of the comparables adjusted rent without supporting market-based evidence. Last, utilities. Again, a few appraisers have made an adjustment for these line items in utilities that exceeds the respective published housing authority allowance. Okay, we're going to jump to another checkup now. Which of the following items in the rent grid are issues which appraisers need to take extra care of when completing? Number of bedrooms, unit interior square feet, wall air conditioners, non-shelter services, extra storage, street appeal. Give you a couple of seconds to take a look. Okay, jumping into the answers. Number of bathrooms. No, that's not an issue. That's not a problem normally. Unit square footage. Yes, that has had some issues. Wall air conditioners. Usually not. Non-shelter services. Sometimes. Extra storage. Usually not. And street appeal. Sometimes problems arise. Now, as you know, not all differences require adjustments, and you only need to make adjustments for differences that affect rent. A decorative berm at the rear of the property probably doesn't demand an adjustment. If it looks like the differential would affect the rental value, you have to explain why you did not include it. You need to make adjustments to reflect local market rents. For example, a swimming pool in Georgia might be valued differently than a swimming pool in North Dakota. Adjustments may vary by unit type. The example cited in the guide describes a situation where a tenant might value a second bath in a 3-bedroom unit differently than a second bath in a 2-bedroom unit. You must also make adjustments to reflect the value, not the cost of the difference. You should consider the value of the tenant rather than the cost of installing an elevator or a swimming pool. You must be consistent in making adjustments. For example, if a difference requires a $10 positive adjustment, then any negative adjustment should be real close to $10. Last, please don't duplicate adjustments. The example in the guide describes adjustments to age and project appeal. You should make sure that the combination of those two adjustments does not exceed the value a tenant would place on those two line items. Now that we've addressed adjustments, let's move to our next topic, deriving estimated market rents. In this section, you, the appraiser, must use your judgment to determine the estimate market rent and derive the secondary unit market rent. In order to derive the estimated market rent, you need to analyze the adjusted rents of the comparables and determine where in the range of adjusted rents the subject would fall. You can consider averages, but there may be reasons why you would select either higher or lower in the range. If there are secondary units in the project, then you would adjust the market rent for the primary rent to reflect the differences between the primary and the secondary units. No matter what you decide, you have to explain how the estimated market rent was determined and why it was derived that way. You must take note of comps that were given more weight, and if you selected the estimated market rent at the high or low end of the range, you have to provide justification. Here's kind of an example. The text that the appraiser used read comparable A, although not as close in distance as the other 4 comparables, was given a higher weight than the others because leasing agents have observed that prospective tenants often consider both properties, subject and comparable A, family-friendly due to on-site daycare and similar services. When we began this session, I indicated there were 3 takeaways. I hope, 1, you now have a better understanding of the procedures to follow if there are insufficient comps in your research. 2, I hope you see the difference between valuing services that are paid for separately by the tenant and those included in the tenant's rents. Last, I hope you're better aware of some of the special issues or the problems, items that we hope appraisers will pay special attention to when preparing rent comparability studies in the future. This slide contains a link to the information on the Section 8 contract renewals, including Chapter 9 and all of the appendices. Thank you for your attention. There are 3 other sessions available that cover the balance of Chapter 9. Please join me for Session 3, where I will cover the process for determining if a subject's rents exceed a certain threshold and the required HUD commissioned rent comparability study.